You hear the phrase all the time now. The gut is our second brain. It sounds catchy. It makes for a great headline. But is it true? Is there really another brain hiding in your belly? The short answer is yes and no. It's complicated, but it's also one of the most interesting stories in modern science. It's a story about a hidden world inside of us that has a huge say in how we feel, how we think, and how we live. To really get it, we have to start with the gut itself, even before we talk about the trillions of tiny creatures living there. Your digestive system is not just a simple tube for processing food, it's lined with its own independent nervous system. Scientists call it the enteric nervous system, or the ENS. This is the part that is, quite literally, a second brain. It's a complex network of over 100 million neurons. That's more neurons than you'll find in your spinal cord or your peripheral nervous system. It's a serious piece of neural hardware. This gut brain is so sophisticated that it can manage the entire process of digestion on its own, without any input from the brain in your head. Think about that. From the moment you swallow, the ENS takes over. It controls the rhythmic muscle contractions called peristalsis that move food along. It manages the release of digestive enzymes. It controls blood flow to absorb nutrients. It does all this automatically in the background. You don't have to think, okay, time to squeeze the small intestine. Your gut brain handles it. It's a smart system. It can sense the type of food you've eaten, fats, proteins, sugars, and release the right enzymes to break it down. It's constantly making decisions. This independence is why it earned the nickname the second brain. It's a subordinate brain for sure, but a brain nonetheless. But this isn't the full story. And it's not what most people mean when they say second brain today. They're usually talking about something else. They're talking about the residents, the gut microbiome. Inside your gut, mostly in your large intestine, lives a massive community of microbes. Bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other single-celled organisms. There are trillions of them. In fact, you have more microbial cells in your body than human cells. You are, in a very real way, more than you. For a long time, we thought of these bacteria as either bad guys that cause disease, or at best, passive freeloaders just along for the ride. We now know that's completely wrong. This community is more like a vital organ that we've only just discovered. This microbial organ does a lot of work for us. Its most basic job is to help with digestion. These microbes break down parts of our food that our own bodies can't, like certain types of fiber. When they break down this fiber, they produce all sorts of useful compounds for us. They manufacture essential vitamins like vitamin K and some B vitamins. They help train our immune system from birth, teaching it to tell the difference between a friend and a foe. A healthy, diverse microbiome is crucial for a healthy, balanced immune response. Without it, our immune system can get confused, leading to allergies or autoimmune conditions. So we have two things. We have a literal second brain of neurons in the gut wall, the ENS. And we have a massive community of microbes, the microbiome, living inside the gut. The real magic and the reason for all the recent excitement happens where these two things meet. The microbes are constantly talking to the gut brain, and together they are constantly talking to the main brain in your head. This whole communication network is called the gut-brain axis. It's not a new idea, but our understanding of how deep the connection goes is changing everything. So how do they talk to each other? How can a bunch of bacteria in your colon influence your mood or your thoughts? It's not like they're sending tiny text messages. The communication happens through several channels, like a complex telephone exchange system. One of the most direct lines of communication is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a massive nerve that wanders from the brainstem all the way down into the abdomen, connecting to the heart, lungs, and, importantly, the gut. It's like a fiber optic cable running between the two brains. What's fascinating is that it's a two-way street. The brain sends signals down to the gut, which is why when you feel stressed or anxious, you might get an upset stomach. That's the brain talking to the gut. But what scientists have discovered is that the vast majority of the traffic on this nerve, maybe 80 to 90%, is flowing in the other direction. It's the gut talking to the brain. Gut bacteria can produce chemical signals that stimulate the nerve endings of the vagus nerve in the gut lining. Those signals then travel straight up to the brain, influencing areas involved in mood, stress, and fear. This is a physical, hardwired connection, but there are other, more chemical ways they communicate. And this might be the most mind-blowing part. Your gut microbes are little chemical factories. They are constantly digesting your food and producing thousands of different compounds called metabolites. These chemicals get absorbed into your bloodstream and travel all over your body, including to your brain. One important group of these chemicals is called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. They are produced when bacteria ferment fiber. These SCFAs, like butyrate, are incredibly important. They are the main source of energy for the cells lining your colon, keeping your gut wall strong and healthy. A healthy gut wall is crucial because it acts as a barrier, deciding what gets into your bloodstream and what stays out. But SCFAs don't just stay in the gut. They can travel to the brain, cross the protective blood-brain barrier, and have direct effects there. They can reduce inflammation in the brain and influence the production of brain-fueling molecules. Then there are the neurotransmitters. These are the chemical messengers that your brain cells use to communicate. You've heard of them: serotonin, dopamine, GABA. They are fundamental to how you feel. Serotonin is often called the happy chemical. It plays a huge role in mood, sleep, and appetite. Dopamine is involved in motivation, reward, and pleasure. GABA is a calming neurotransmitter that helps put the brakes on anxiety. You would assume these are all made in the brain, but that's not the whole story. An estimated 90% of your body's serotonin is produced in the gut, not in the brain, in the gut. And gut bacteria play a major role in its production. Certain species of bacteria can stimulate the gut cells to produce serotonin. Other bacteria can produce GABA all by themselves. Think about what that means. The microbes living in your gut are directly involved in producing the very chemicals that regulate your mood. If your microbiome is out of balance, if you don't have enough of the right kinds of bacteria, it could mean that your production of these crucial mood-regulating chemicals is also out of balance. This isn't just a theory. It's one of the most active areas of research in neuroscience and psychiatry today. The immune system is another channel. Around 70% of your immune cells live in your gut. The microbiome and the immune system are in constant conversation. The microbes help train the immune cells. A healthy microbiome promotes a balanced immune response. An unhealthy one can trigger inflammation. And chronic, low-grade inflammation in the gut doesn't just stay in the gut. The inflammatory signals, called cytokines, can travel through the blood to the brain. This can cause what's known as neuroinflammation, which is now linked to a whole host of brain issues, including depression, anxiety, and even neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. The health of your gut-based immune system has a direct impact on the inflammatory state of your brain. Okay, that's the theory of how it works. The vagus nerve, the chemical metabolites, the neurotransmitters, the immune system. It sounds plausible, but what's the actual evidence? A lot of the early groundbreaking work was done in mice. Scientists can raise mice in a completely sterile environment, so they have no gut bacteria at all. These are called germ-free mice, and what they found is that these mice are very different from normal mice. Their brains develop differently. They are often highly anxious and have exaggerated responses to stress. They behave almost like they are socially awkward, preferring to stay away from other mice. But here's where it gets really strange. If you take these anxious germ-free mice and give them a fecal transplant from a normal, calm mouse, their behavior changes. They become less anxious, they become more social. You can essentially transplant a personality trait. The reverse is also true. If you take a normal mouse and give it a transplant from a mouse bred to be anxious or depressed, the normal mouse will start to show anxious and depressive behaviors. This kind of research was a game changer. It showed a direct causal link between the state of the gut microbiome and behavior. Of course, humans are not mice. We can't do these kinds of controlled experiments on people. But there is a growing mountain of evidence from human studies that points in the same direction. Scientists have found significant differences in the gut microbiomes of people with depression compared to people without it. People with depression often have less diversity in their gut bacteria and are missing certain beneficial species while having an overgrowth of others linked to inflammation. Similar patterns have been found for people with anxiety disorders, autism spectrum disorder, and Parkinson's disease. For example, 2 large-scale studies in Europe looked at the gut microbes of thousands of people and compared them with data on their mental health. They found that certain types of bacteria were consistently absent in people with depression, specifically 2 genera called Coprococcus and Dialister. They also found that several species were able to produce a compound that is a precursor to dopamine, a key neurotransmitter for mood. The more of these bacteria people had, the higher their self-reported quality of life. This is still just a correlation. It doesn't prove the bacteria cause or cure depression. Maybe being depressed changes your eating habits, which then changes your gut bacteria. The cause and effect arrow is hard to pin down in humans, but we are getting closer. There have been studies using probiotics as supplements containing live, beneficial bacteria. Some of these studies, though often small, have shown that taking certain probiotic strains can lead to improvements in mood and reductions in anxiety and stress symptoms. The effects are usually modest, not a magic cure, but they provide further evidence that changing the gut bacteria can, in fact, change how we feel. These specially designed probiotics are sometimes called psychobiotics, a term that highlights their potential to affect the mind. The link to Parkinson's disease is also striking. Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disease that affects movement caused by the death of dopamine-producing cells in the brain. For years, doctors have known that people with Parkinson's often suffer from severe constipation for a decade or more before they ever show the classic motor symptoms like tremors. It was seen as a side issue. Now, many scientists believe the disease may actually start in the gut. The theory is that a misfolded protein called alpha-synuclein, which is a hallmark of Parkinson's, may first appear in the gut's nervous system. From there, it could travel up the vagus nerve into the brain where it spreads and causes damage. Researchers have found that the gut microbiomes of people with Parkinson's are distinctly different from those of healthy people. This is a radical rethinking of a classic brain disease, recasting it as something that might have its origins in the gut. So, let's come back to the original question. With all this evidence, is the gut microbiome our second brain? This is where we need to be careful with language. The term is a metaphor, and like all metaphors, it's both useful and a little bit inaccurate. The argument for calling it a second brain is strong. This microbial community is a massive information processing center. It senses the food we eat, it monitors the state of our gut, it produces an arsenal of neuroactive chemicals that directly influence the brain in our head. It has a powerful say in our mood, our stress levels, and our behavior. Its influence is so profound that it's hard to think of it as just a collection of passive microbes. It acts like a coherent functional unit. The second brain metaphor captures this power and influence in a way that is easy to grasp. It elevates the microbiome from being just about digestion to being a key player in our overall health, both physical and mental. But there's also a strong argument against the term. A brain, as we traditionally understand it, thinks. It has consciousness, it forms intentions, creates ideas, and stores memories in a specific way. The microbiome does none of these things. It doesn't have thoughts or feelings. It's a complex chemical factory, not a conscious entity. It's reacting to its environment, the food you send down, and producing chemical outputs based on its genetic programming. The microbes are just trying to survive and reproduce. Their influence on our brain is a byproduct of their own metabolism. A very, very important byproduct, but a byproduct nonetheless. So calling it a brain might be a stretch. It's more like a giant, influential chemical advisory board to the two real brains, the one in your head and the enteric nervous system in your gut. It whispers suggestions, provides chemical reports, and sometimes shouts inflammatory warnings that the main brain can't ignore. Perhaps a more accurate, if less catchy, term would be our second genome. You have your human genome, the DNA in your cells that you inherit from your parents. But you also have the microbial genome, the collective DNA of all the microbes inside you, which contains at least 100 times more genes than your own. This microbial genome gives you a whole set of abilities you weren't born with, like the ability to digest certain plant fibers or produce certain vitamins. It's a functional part of what makes you you. Or you could call it a metabolic organ. It functions like your liver or your pancreas, carrying out complex biochemical tasks that are essential for your survival. But it's a unique kind of organ, one made up of trillions of separate organisms that you acquire after birth and that can change throughout your life. Ultimately, the label doesn't matter as much as the understanding, whatever you call it. The key takeaway is that the community of microbes in your gut is not just a passive passenger. It is an active and powerful partner in conversation with your brain. What happens in your gut does not stay in your gut. It has profound implications for your mind. This understanding is shifting the way we think about health, especially mental health. For centuries, we've treated the mind as if it's completely separate from the body, a concept from the philosopher Descartes called mind-body dualism. If you had a mental health problem like depression, the problem was seen as being entirely in your head. The treatment was focused on brain chemistry, with drugs like SSRIs that target serotonin levels in the brain, or on talk therapy. These treatments can be life-saving for many people, but for many others they don't work, or they have significant side effects. The gut-brain axis opens up a whole new way of thinking. It suggests that for some people, the root of their mental distress might not be entirely in their head. It might be, at least in part, in their gut. An imbalance in the gut microbiome, a leaky gut barrier that allows inflammatory molecules to escape, or a poor diet that feeds the wrong kinds of microbes could all be contributing factors. This doesn't mean depression is just a tummy ache. It means the body is one interconnected system. Inflammation in the gut can lead to inflammation in the brain, and that neuroinflammation can manifest as symptoms of depression or anxiety. So, what does this mean for us in a practical sense? It means that taking care of your gut is one of the most important things you can do for your brain. And the single most powerful tool you have to shape your gut microbiome is your diet. The food you eat is not just feeding you, it's feeding the trillions of microbes inside you. You can choose to feed the beneficial ones or the more harmful ones. The good guys, the bacteria that produce beneficial compounds like those short chain fatty acids, absolutely love fiber. This is their superfood. Most of us don't eat nearly enough of it. Fiber is found in plants, vegetables, fruits, legumes like beans and lentils, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. When you eat a wide variety of these foods, you're feeding a wide variety of good microbes. Diversity is key. A healthy gut microbiome is like a lush rainforest with many different species all working together. A diet heavy in processed foods, sugar, and unhealthy fats is like a barren desert. It promotes the growth of inflammatory bacteria and starves the beneficial ones. Fermented foods are another way to support your gut. Foods like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and kombucha contain live bacteria or probiotics. Eating these foods can help introduce beneficial microbes into your gut ecosystem. It's not about one superfood, it's about a pattern of eating that consistently supports a healthy gut environment. Beyond diet, other lifestyle factors play a huge role. Chronic stress is a major gut disruptor. The stress hormone cortisol can negatively impact the gut lining and change the composition of your microbiome. This is a vicious cycle. Stress hurts your gut, and an unhealthy gut sends signals to the brain that can increase your feelings of stress and anxiety. Finding ways to manage stress, whether it's through exercise, meditation, or spending time in nature, is good for your head and your gut. Exercise is also beneficial. It seems to increase the diversity of the microbiome and promote the growth of bacteria that produce that helpful SPA butyrate. And sleep is critical. Your gut, like your brain, has its own daily rhythm. A lack of quality sleep can throw that rhythm off and negatively affect your microbial community. The future of this field is incredibly exciting. We are moving towards a world of personalized medicine. We can now get our gut microbiome sequenced and get a report of which bacteria we have. In the future, this information might be used to create personalized dietary recommendations or custom probiotic cocktails designed to rebalance a person's unique microbiome to target specific health issues, including mental health conditions. Imagine a future where a psychiatrist, in addition to prescribing medication or therapy, also prescribes a specific diet or a targeted psychobiotic to help treat a patient's depression. That future is not as far off as it sounds. So, is your gut microbiome a second brain? No, not in the literal sense that it can compose a symphony or ponder the meaning of life. But it's not a dumb passenger either. It is an intelligent, responsive, and incredibly influential system that is in a constant, deep conversation with the brain in your head. It's a partner, it shapes your moods, tweaks your anxieties, and influences your health in ways we are only just beginning to understand. The metaphor works because it makes us pay attention. It forces us to recognize that the mind is not just in the head. It's connected to every part of our body, right down to the trillions of microbes we host. And understanding that connection gives us a powerful new way to take control of our own well-being. Looking after your gut is a form of looking after your mind. It's that simple and that profound.